Hey, it's been a while. Let's get to the news. All right, thanks for joining me today. Monday, October 18th. I've been gone for a while, but I'm back today, and I'll tell you more about that as we go. But I have a great story. It's about Christopher Steele and ABC News platforming him and making a documentary about the whole big thing, the liar, you know. But not just that. I've got a story about that, but I'm going to follow it up with a couple more stories that you may or may not have already heard about. So stick around for that. But first, I'm going to talk about ABC News. Yesterday, I was watching George Stephanopoulos, and he was running an interview with Christopher Steele. Now, here's the story from ABC News. Confronting his critics, Christopher Steele defends controversial dossier in first major interview. The British ex-spy opens up in the ABC News documentary Out of the Shadows, and that's going to hit Hulu today or tonight, whatever time they do that. Out of the Shadows, the man behind the Steele dossier, only on Hulu. So this was interesting. You know, had the Sunday morning talk shows on, and George Stephanopoulos had gone Christopher Steele, which was bizarre because he's a known liar, and pretty much everything he said is BS. But let's go on with the story. Former British spy Christopher Steele is stepping out of the shadows to, quote, set the record straight about his bombshell dossier for the first time since his name splashed across headlines in early 2017, defending his work, his name, and the decision to include some of the most controversial elements. He says, I stand by the work that we did, the professionalism that we applied to it, he told George Stephanopoulos. In this first major interview, Steele described how and why he wrote the 17 reports that made up the so-called Steele dossier, which accused former President Donald Trump's campaign of conspiring with Russians to tilt the result of the 2016 election. Now, to this day, there's no evidence of any of that. I know that they will shift the goalposts 100 times to say that there is, but there isn't. And when we go through and look at all the fun stuff that he's claiming, it's still ridiculous. But he's sticking by his lies, or he's sticking by his story. Right? He has not changed his story. So here is a little video clip from that interview with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. All right, let's get that going here. Come on. Oh. All right, so I'm recording this live. And
summary of these unsubstantiated allegations.
I saw the information. I read the information outside of that.
So let's get to it.
Thought it was important to come and set the record straight.
Say here.
One big claim in the dossier, the FBI, according to the Inspector General's report, and Mueller reinforces it, is not true, is the claim that Michael Cohen had a meeting with Russians in Prague. Do you accept that finding, that it didn't happen?
No, I don't.
Michael Cohen was Trump's personal lawyer and self-described fixer. The Steele dossier had alleged Cohen met secretly with Kremlin officials in Prague. Those were allegations the FBI later said were not true, according to the Inspector General report.
I've never been to Prague.
Never have.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
Michael Cohen has completely turned on Donald Trump. He's accused him of all kinds of things. He's gone to jail. It defies logic that if he did this, he wouldn't say so now.
I don't agree with that. It's self-incriminating to a very great degree.
Since he's gone to prison, since he's turned on President Trump, he's told every single story. Why wouldn't he admit to this?
Because I think it's so incriminating and demeaning. And the other reason is he might be scared of the consequences.
All right, so you know, that's just a little bit of that interview. But it gets you to think, who won't they have on? This guy has been discredited all over the place. The FBI said that he wasn't true. And this story that he's like, yeah, he met with Russians. They had a clandestine meeting to make all these make this work. And he said, I'd never been to the country. And you can't produce any evidence that he's ever been to the country. Believe me, you don't think the government knows if you went into an Eastern Bloc country or not? Of course they do. And they could produce that evidence. But there is no evidence because this is a BS story, as is the majority of this dossier. It's been proven. Well, it hasn't been proven negative because you can't do that, but there's nothing in it that's been proven. There's this infamous videotape, which is very salacious. I know Stephen Colbert talked about it a whole bunch. But again, after, what's this, a number of years, 5 years? Not one frame image from that supposed video has leaked or appeared anywhere. So it is just really interesting that someone, the FBI says this is totally false, and ABC will put him on and make a documentary about it to sell ads. They'll do that for someone that is a proven liar. But how come other things that are not proven you can't say? I know that there are certain things on this platform that you are not allowed to say at all. But here we are. Christopher Steele can keep asserting these claims that the FBI says aren't true. That's okay. But other topics, such as, you know, the situation that we're in, you can't even mention. So I think that that is just disgusting what ABC News is doing. I think if they want to do a story about Christopher Steele, that's fine. But to set him up and present him in such a respectable way with not a whole lot of pushback is just a bad look. But that's it for this Christopher Steele story. So like I said in the little, when I was playing the video clip, I'm just recording this live. I've never done that before. Eventually, I'd like to be able to just stream this live. I have a small issue with an audio sync problem, that the audio's a little bit out. So I'm just recording this whole thing live, running the graphics live, doing everything live. Do it live, right? And, you know, I'll see how that goes. But let's go on to the second story that I have for you today, and that is about Pete Buttigieg and his response to Tucker Carlson. He says, I'm not going to apologize to Tucker Carlson. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this story up is it only seems to be being reported, his response, in mainly left-wing news. So you may not have heard about that yet. But in this story, Transportation Department Pete Buttigieg responds to the right-wing criticism over his paternal leave during an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper. So here is... Oh, I don't have a video for that. Or I do. Do I? I don't know.
This is the first time you've been on the show since you and your husband Chasten welcomed twins, Penelope and Joseph, into your family. You just returned from paternity leave, which Congress is debating right now. Some conservatives have been citing your experience in an effort to mock the very idea of paternity leave. Take a listen.
Pete Buttigieg has been on leave from his job since August after adopting a child. Paternity leave, they call it, trying to figure out how to breastfeed. No word on how that went.
What's your response?
As you might imagine, we're bottle feeding and doing it at all hours of the day and night. I'm not going to apologize to Tucker Carlson or anyone else for taking care of my premature newborn infant twins. The work that we are doing is joyful, fulfilling, wonderful work. It's important work. And it's work that every American ought to be able to do when they welcome a new child into their family. I can't...
You know, not to criticize how someone's speaking and if it sounds genuine or not, but that's the most robotic response I've heard in years. I can't think of anything more robotic than the way that Pete Buttigieg is responding to this thing from Tucker Carlson. It's just ridiculous. He cannot even pretend to be, I don't know, a regular human being. It's weird. But, yeah, I agree. He shouldn't have to apologize to Tucker Carlson for taking 2 months off when he's, Secretary of Treasury, when our country is having Secretary of Treasury, what am I saying? Secretary of Transportation, and during a transportation crisis, we have all these container ships off the coast of California. Huge supply chain issues going on right now. He took 2 months off for adopted kids. He shouldn't have to apologize to Tucker Carlson for that. But he should probably apologize to every single American. This is dereliction of your duty. You haven't even been at work a year, right? You started this year. You worked, 6 months, and then you took 2 months off? I mean, that's a great gig if you can get it, but it's just unacceptable when we have a crisis. And I can understand paternity leave. I'm for paternity leave. In this particular case, I mean, he has a husband at home who's not working, who can take care of the kids, and we have a transportation crisis that he's ignoring. And not only that, he didn't even turn it over to someone else to have like a deputy acting transportation secretary. Nothing. He just stayed home. Oh man, I just don't even know what to say. The only thing is perhaps him not doing anything about transportation is better than him actually working on transportation. But that's very cynical of myself. So that's it for that story. The third story of the day that we have is souls to the polls. And this is what happened yesterday in a lot of black churches in Virginia. They actually played campaign ads featuring Kamala Harris campaigning for Terry McAuliffe. He's in a gubernatorial race there. It's coming up very shortly. The polls are already open. I think that it's next week is the election, or 2 weeks, I'm not sure. But you can already start voting in Virginia right now, and a video message played at all these black churches. So let's check that out real quick. And again, I'm getting the hang of how to run all this live. Here we go. Okay, obviously not working. Right, let's try it again.
Greetings, everyone.
All right.
So when I was growing up, we sang in the choir.
Skip ahead.
Your voice through your vote, because it's election time. As you know, this is an important election coming up on Tuesday, November 2nd, and early voting is already underway. I believe that my friend Terry McAuliffe is the leader Virginia needs at this moment. Terry McAuliffe has a long track record of getting things done.
I mean, can you imagine
for the people of Virginia?
If Trump,
when he was governor, in the wake of the recession, you'll remember,
messages playing
he brought
at
200,000 jobs to Virginia. Incomes went up and unemployment went down
You don't think the
in
IRS
every
would,
city and county
be trying
in
to
the
take away their
state.
tax-exempt status?
And now Terry McAuliffe is stepping up again with a clear vision about how
Let's skip to the end here. What do we got?
this year, I know that you will send Terry McAuliffe back to Richmond. So early voting has already started, and this is the first year that you can vote on Sundays. So please vote after today's service. And if you cannot vote today, make a plan to go vote. Go to iwillvote.com.
Wow. How is that not a violation of campaign finance, of just campaign laws? That's insane. Here's the story. This was in the Washington Examiner. So if you only follow left-wing news, you probably didn't hear this story because it's not been reported by anyone on the left. Hundreds of churches across Virginia are set to air a political ad starring Vice President Kamala Harris, a move that has raised eyebrows regarding the legality of bringing political campaigns into houses of worship. Between October 17th, yesterday, and November 2nd, a video featuring Harris will play during the morning services of over 300 black churches across Virginia. Now, I thought black churches were supposed to be fun. In the video, Harris encourages voters to vote for gubernatorial candidate Terry McAuliffe in the upcoming election, according to CNN. You know, Terry McAuliffe is a big Clinton person. So is Kamala Harris. I believe that my friend Terry McAuliffe is the leader Virginia needs at this moment, Harris says in the video. Terry McAuliffe has a long track record of getting things done for the people of Virginia. So that's quite incredible. Twitter users critical of McAuliffe pointed out the prohibitions the IRS has for churches and asked if McAuliffe and Harris were risking the income tax exemption that any of the churches enjoyed. If they were risking that, they don't care, right? They don't care if they risk the church's tax exemption status because once they get in, they'll nullify it anyway. Since 1954, Congress has prohibited all 501c organizations, including churches, from participating in political campaigns in order to maintain their exemption from income tax. Yeah, so if you only see left-wing news, you haven't seen this story. But I think it is absolutely insane. This is not a good trend. Who do you think has more churches? Democrats or Republicans? And if this is okay for black churches in Virginia, then it's got to be okay for everybody else's church too. And I don't think we want to change our houses of worship into political rallies. Do you? I don't. That's the last thing I would want to see if I went to a church. Some political ad playing and telling me how to vote. That's disgusting. But the third story that I want to get to today is, here we are. We're going to talk about former FDA heads. And so for that story, let's go here. This is a story that the left or the right is not talking about, but I want to talk about it. Former commissioners of the FDA. Here we have Scott Gottlieb. I've talked about him before on this channel. Stephen Hahn and Mark McClellan. Now, what do you do when you're a former commissioner of the FDA, when you're done? Well, in the case of Scott Gottlieb, you get on the board of Pfizer. Yeah. And when you're on the board of Pfizer, you're able to get things passed, get things through. Make sure that your jab gets approved, whereas all the other companies don't. So Pfizer's money is well spent on Dr. Scott Gottlieb. Now, one of the things about Dr. Gottlieb that I've noticed is often when he will appear in the media, they will just introduce him as former FDA chair or former FDA commissioner and not mention the fact that he's being paid six figures by Pfizer. They neglect to tell you that, but they will let you know that he was the former commissioner of the FDA. So the media needs to do a better job of reporting where someone's actually getting their money from than what they used to do. But, that takes us to Stephen Hahn. What's he up to? Well, he is the chief medical officer for Flagship Pioneering. And you're like, well, good for him. He's getting paid. Flagship Pioneering, well, that doesn't have anything to do with you or me. And then you realize that Flagship Pioneering is the firm that funded Moderna. So Moderna has a former FDA person working for them as their chief medical officer. And, congrats for him because, they've got something approved that they're making so much money on. Take a look at the stock price of Moderna over the last 2 years. That would have been a good buy had anyone done that. And lastly, we got Mark McClellan, who is a former commissioner of the FDA, and he is, oh, that's right, he's at Johnson & Johnson. So all three vax makers have a former FDA commissioner on their board or working for them in some manner. And it's money well spent because they're all making record profits. I don't know what you do about this, but it just doesn't seem right. Now, I think anyone should be able to work for anyone they want to, right? You get done being a former commissioner of the FDA, you should be able to get a job and get paid. But it's interesting that all three makers of the jab have a former FDA commissioner working for them. So good job if you can get it. But I wanted to end today with a nice story. And so this is a feel-good story, if you will. This is from the BBC. Swansea teen lockdown artist offered thousands for work. Swansea is, of course, a big city in Wales. Well, not that big. It's kind of small city in Wales, but Mackenzie Beard, 14, has been offered thousands of pounds for her painting. A teenager from Swansea who took up painting during the lockdown has been offered thousands of pounds for some of her work. She's had international interest in her portrait painting, which has gone on display at the gallery in Cardiff. Her portrait of her neighbor, farmer John Tucker, that's a good name, went viral after it was posted on social media. Mackenzie said she still wants to continue painting as a hobby for now. Art enthusiasts in the Middle East, the United States, and the UK have expressed interest in her work. Blackwater Gallery in Cardiff Bay said 3 of Mackenzie's pieces have already sold. One buyer offered £10,000. And if you look at this, that's a pretty amazing painting there. And she just took it up in lockdown? This doesn't even seem real that she would be able to paint this well. When you look at these pictures, there's got to be some kind of trick. Whatever she's doing, it's fantastic. And this really shows skill to be able to do that. There's a whole lot more skill in her paintings. Look at all that talent. Than, say, this guy's painting. This painting's a joke, but I think it sold for $75,000. But then, of course, she doesn't have a current president as a dad. So, £10,000, $13,000. That's pretty good for her. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. This was the first attempt at me recording a video live. So let me know what you think about that. Be sure to hit the like button, share, comment, all that good stuff. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to read your comments. I look forward to seeing that, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace.